If you're a fan of classic RPGs, you know that the PlayStation wasn't just about early 3D graphics and experimenting with polygons. It was also home to some of the most important re-releases of the 16-bit era. During a time when gaming was racing towards cinematic cutscenes and fully 3D worlds, Square made a surprising move. Instead of leaving the past behind, they brought it with them. Today we're diving into three legendary compilations: Final Fantasy Chronicles, Final Fantasy Anthology, and Final Fantasy Origins. These collections preserve some of the greatest RPGs ever made and introduce them to an entirely new generation. Released in North America in 2001, Final Fantasy Chronicles bundled together two giants of the RPG genre, Final Fantasy IV and Chrono Trigger. By the time it launched, the PlayStation was nearing the end of its life, and the PlayStation 2 was arriving. Gaming was evolving once again, but these releases felt like a celebration of the 16-bit golden era. Let's begin with Final Fantasy IV. Originally released in 1991, this was the entry that elevated storytelling and console RPGs. It focused on redemption, internal conflict, and character growth. More importantly, it introduced an active time battle system. Instead of strictly turn-based combat, actions were governed by a real-time gauge. It added urgency, tension, and strategy under pressure. The PlayStation version also restored content from the original Japanese release and added animated cutscenes that gave key scenes new emotional weight. Then there's Chrono Trigger. Often called one of the greatest RPGs ever created, Chrono Trigger featured time travel, multiple endings, seamless battle transitions, and a collaborative development team made up of RPG legends. The PlayStation version added animated cutscenes, bonus features like a bestiary, and a music player, turning the game into something that felt archival. Of course, the downside to moving cartridge games to CD is load times. The delays in gameplay and added load times were immediately noticed by longtime fans. But for many players in 2001, this wasn't a compromise. It was their first chance to experience these masterpieces. Final Fantasy Chronicles was more than a port, it helped build a bridge between generations. Before digital storefronts made classic games instantly accessible, there was Final Fantasy Anthology. Released in 1999, it brought together Final Fantasy V and Final Fantasy VI. Its biggest impact was Final Fantasy V, which had never officially released in North America before this. For years, it was almost mythical to us in the West. Final Fantasy V is built around its revolutionary job system. Characters can change roles freely, mastering abilities and mixing them across classes. It encourages experimentation and strategic creativity. Then there's Final Fantasy VI, often considered the crown jewel of the 16-bit era. It featured an ensemble cast rather than a single protagonist. And at the center was one of gaming's most iconic villains, Kefka. The game took narrative risks, rarely seen in 1994. Emotional loss, a fractured world, a dramatic tonal shift midway through the story. The PlayStation version added CG cutscenes and a bonus gallery, but again, loading times slightly disrupted pacing. Even so, Anthology ensured these titles weren't left behind as the industry moved towards 3D gaming. By 2003, Final Fantasy was a global phenomenon, but Final Fantasy Origins looked backwards instead of forward. This collection included enhanced versions of Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy II. The original Final Fantasy laid the blueprint: elemental crystals, character classes, airships, and recurring themes that would define the series for decades. The Origins version updated the sprites, refined the interface, added difficulty settings, and introduced animated cutscenes. Final Fantasy II took a very different approach. Instead of traditional leveling, stats increased depending on player actions. It was experimental, but many sequels around this time took similar risks by making changes to gameplay, such as Zelda 2 and Mario Bros. 2. Unlike early PlayStation 1 ports, Origins benefited from smoother performance and fewer loading issues. It felt more polished, thanks to being based on improved remakes. This release helped the PlayStation generation celebrate its Final Fantasy beginnings. Looking back, these three collections tell a larger story about gaming evolution. The late 90s and early 2000s was obsessed with 3D. Many 2D classics were disappearing from store shelves, but through Chronicles, Anthology, and Origins, Square ensured that the foundation of RPG genre wasn't lost in the translation. Today, remasters and digital ports are common, but at the time, preservation wasn't guaranteed. These releases were ahead of their time. And that's our journey through Final Fantasy Chronicles, Anthology, and Origins. Three collections that carried the 16-bit era into the age of CDs and cinematic gaming. These masterpieces help preserve classics for a generation, and with the current Pixel Remaster collection, it looks as if it's been preserved for at least one more. If you enjoyed this brief glimpse into video game preservation and history, be sure to give us a follow. And tell me in the comments which of these compilations meant the most to you. Now going forward, I think I'm going to focus only on one game or compilation. I just felt like each game I kind of glossed over and I didn't really talk as in depth as I would like to on each video. I want to get more into the preservation and stuff like that, so we'll see. I think that's what I'm going to plan on doing for the future. But anyway, until next time, please support your local library. This has been Steve the Librarian, and may your crystals always shine bright.